Hello, and thank you all for joining our podcast today. My name is Jeremy Sizemore, and I'm the president of ASAP Talent Services. As you all know, or many of you know, ASAP is one of the leading SAP-focused talent acquisition firms in North America. And today I have with me SP, what we call him, Surya Prakash Jain, goes by SP, and is the founder of TransVenture. And so I really enjoy being able to talk with SP today. He has himself, and I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about his journey, but certainly has been a technology founder and has played in the world, in the SAP market and the SAP ecosystem for decades. He understands the SAP market globally and has worked with other technology founders to grow their businesses, knows a lot about capital and how to 10x businesses, knows a lot about mergers and acquisitions. So really happy to have you today, SP. Tell us a little bit about your journey, SP. Tell us about your background and obviously also TransVenture.
Thank you, Jeremy, and really appreciate your question. And we started our journey in 1996. So I started first tech company started 1996 to 2021. Around 25 years, we built a company which was into data center, network, IT services in the sector of transportation, telecommunication, banking, and government as a sectors. And we built a 5,000 people company in India with 440 city service presence with 400 million revenue. And then we have grown in the company, and then 2021 we got an exit to one of the Nasdaq listed company called Ibix Cash. So now it's a part of Ibix Cash, and we had a journey to grow and build and then exit. And then after that in 2021 we started TransVenture with the idea that can we support the mid-size IT founders to grow their whether it's a growth advisory we can support, or M&A we can support, or we can support in any way where the founders are looking for help. We help the founders to grow their revenue by 10x, and also the 10x equity value they create from here. With that thought process, we started TransVenture.
No, I love that. And so what I heard there is in 15 to 20 years, you grew a company that had over 5,000 employees there in India. Where in India are you guys headquartered out of?
Yeah, so we are a Mumbai-based company in Mumbai, and when we started with very small, with the hardware business to start with. In 1996 to 2021, we were a 100 people company, and then we grown that a lot of IT outsourcing started coming in 2002. 2010 to 2015. So whether it's a medical translation, call centers, BPO, KPO, and then India become a global delivery center for whole world. So our IT services business grown with them. And then 2007, 8, 9, we partner with BSNL, which is one of the largest telco, government telecom company in India. With that partnership, we grown 35,000 banks, branches, network. We did 99.9% MPLS VPN network support. And we had a physical presence in 440 cities, any part of the country, whether it's a Jammu Kashmir to Trivandrum. Within 2 hours, we were physically present. So that network we have created. Then we set up a data center in public-private partnership of ITI Limited, which is again another PSU in India. And that PSU has a 2 megawatt power. We have created a 350 rigs. In the year 2010, we have set up a data center. So today everyone is talking about data center, large capability, but we did very early days of 2010, we set up a data center which is still running, and we are managing around 5,000 servers, rigs, different infrastructure of large infrastructure of the banks, financial institutions, governments, telecom companies. Those network we set up for data center. Third, we have set up a transportation bus ticketing exchange, bus exchange. So around 20 million passenger travel on that platform. Whether it's Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, Kolkata, Maharashtra, UP, Rajasthan, major customers, around 20 million passenger travel on the platform. And we do design, build, operate, run, transfer. So everything we own the IP of the transport transit customer, but complete ticketing and reservation system, whether it's a mobile ticketing, whether it's a POS machine ticketing, whether it's a bus ticketing, everything is done by on this platform. And very interestingly, we also did some smart city projects as well as the government projects in the India. So that all we were able to build different business model with the scale up the business, and then we also transitioned to the next level of things. And we thought that we get a larger partner who has a 45 countries service presence. Can we get an our bus exchange platform to 45 countries, and that become a true MNC? So with that thought process, we did a strategic partnership in mind.
Gotcha.
We did a strategic partnership with the Bix Cash.
Yeah, super cool. So TransVenture, now that you've started TransVenture, you guys have been around, it sounds like 6 or 7 years about, or
Yeah, so from 5 years, 2021 onwards, we started, and that transventure, what we decided, we'll focus on only the 5 or 6 technologies. So we do SAP, Salesforce, ServiceNow, Databricks, Snowflake, and cloud. So competence which is enterprise customer is looking for, the companies who are 50 million to $1 billion IT budget, the 70% of the IT budget goes in this 6 7 technology. And that's how we started the 6 7 technology companies as a competence. And today we've seen that most of the transactions are held in the mid market. So we focus on the companies which are from 20 million to 200 million revenue companies. These are the focus companies for us. And we see that how we can add the value. So sometimes founder are looking for M&A 1 year down the line, 2 years down the line, 3 year down the line. That's fine. We really want to help them to whether they are looking for a right co-founder in the company, whether they are looking for a right strategic partner, joint venture partner, alliance partner, network partner, different kind of partnership. We are able to give them that. Someone, people, companies from India who want to set up a business in US, they want to have a partnership in the US partner, someone who is looking for a US base. So companies who are at 20, 30, 50 million SAP partners, they are looking for an entry to the US market. And that's how the partnership with you will help us out to build that partner ecosystem where the companies from India, Epic, Middle East want to come to a US market. That is the right fit where we can have a strategic partnership with SAP partners with SF.
yeah, I think SP, you bring up a really interesting topic. So just sharing with the audience a little bit about my journey in ASAP Talent. So I got started in IT recruiting in right around Y2K. I remember Y2K like it was yesterday, it seems like. Um, but very quickly, I became focused in recruiting in the ERP world here in the United States. So I can remember in the early 2000s that a lot of companies were migrating from very large IT teams supporting homegrown software. They were starting to, I remember Dow Chemical and Ford Motor Company were some of the early adopters of SAP R2. And it was like version 2.0 and version 3.0 and a lot of on-prem software. This was very expensive to implement, a lot of business process change. And we started to see it catch fire in the US market. Lots of companies were implementing SAP between 2000 and 2006, Fortune 500 in particular. And I remember in the beginning, SP, it was mainly the big five. You know, you had Accenture and Deloitte and IBM and Capgemini and PwC and everyone remembers, you know, a lot of folks will remember those early days. And it seemed like there was a few big major players and they got most of the business in terms of implementation partner. And the number of SAP implementation partners and different companies in the SAP ecosystem in the United States in particular, by 2015 and 2020, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of technology firms supporting SAP implementations. You know, I know that we've seen some shifts, major shifts in the last 15 or 20. I was going to share a couple that I've seen. I was going to ask you what you've seen, you know, but I know we've had a major shift going from on-prem to cloud. And, you know, so in SAP, everyone's talking S4HANA, S4HANA, S4HANA. And there's deadlines. There's dates that any company that's still on ECC, they have to be on S4HANA, or else they will have significant fees incurred to support an old system. They have a deadline date. And so they really are strongly encouraging companies to be on S4HANA by a certain cutoff date, and it's coming. That's driving a lot of the decisions. And everyone's talking about SAP Rise, SAP Grow, public cloud, and I remember when when everyone was starting to talk about Azure and AWS, and they were doing private cloud. So that was the real talking point, I would say 6 or 7 years ago. But in the last two, there's a lot of talk about public cloud. Tell us what you're seeing in terms of these major shifts in the market, and also how that's impacting technology founders and different implementation partners that are playing in the space.
True. So I see there is AI is another new world which is entering into. The customers are little more, they want to know more about AI, what can be done, because ERP, most of the implementation is done, completed. They want to do now AI with, along with the cyber securities are challenges with them, as well as that other challenges are sector wise, domain wise specialization is happening. So if you are specialized in particular domain of what the customer is looking for, they are ready to work with you. The other trend I can also see that enterprise customer itself is trying to build their own in-house IT, which was 30 years before, 20 years before there was a trend. They want to build their own IT in-house. They want to build a GCC in different countries, and then R&D and innovation also they want to do. So it's a new trend where it was a complete outsourcing to companies want to build a GCC of their own as enterprise customer. So we see there's a trend is changing from the competence of the system integrator perspective. Now they are also focusing on one way is cloud system integration, how they can do AI integrate, and they can how they can the time of implementation can come down. The second, then the efficiency built up. Third will be the GCC, how they can build for the enterprise customer, and that's where I think the most of the larger companies also thinking to build a 10 to 20% of their business comes to the GCC itself. That's a trend, new change we have seen enterprise customer as well as a larger system integration.
I would wholeheartedly agree with everything you said, and particularly about AI. So the AI stuff, I mean, we were hearing talk of it 2 or 3 years ago, but I think in the last 18 months, it is the number one business issue, not number one IT issue, number one business issue that large global corporations are even talking about and facing. At the board level, they are all talking about how is agentic AI going to impact our business. It's impacting how their departments are structured. It's impacting to some degree how many employees they need or don't need, the types of employees they need or don't need. We have CIOs starting to build departments underneath their IT group. Back in the day, they had their enterprise apps group, they had their software engineering group, their infrastructure group, their cybersecurity group, IT help desk group. They have different subgroups under the CIO. Well, the AI group is now a group. It wasn't a group 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And so a lot more new job titles that we're recruiting on are AI specific job titles. Companies now have CAIO, Chief AI Officer. That wasn't a thing 10 years ago. It wasn't a thing 7 years ago. So we are in a changing world. There is no doubt about it. I want to shift to this other change. So there's been a great consolidation effort. A lot of the big five companies, and not even just big five, but major players, let's say Wipro, let's say Tata, let's say Mahindra and Mahindra. I've seen companies from all over the world, companies from the UK, Australia, India, China, have come in to acquire technology companies in the United States market. And I think there's probably more than one reason for that. But what are some of the reasons why so many global companies are wanting to acquire US tech companies? What do you see there, SP?
So I see there is a two, three trends here. One is that any IT company which is more than 100 million to $1 billion, their strategy is 60% they will do organic and 40% they will do inorganic as a competency built up. So data and AI is a new competency where the people are just building up the new competency. So they want to partner with the companies in US or Europe or whichever, who has got some case studies done, some case studies in US, 2, 3 customer, 5 customer. They are fine with to partner with them as a strategic partnership, and there are multiple deals has happened in data and AI space where all this larger system integrators acquire the capability to their existing customer to cross sell. Second idea is basically that all the Indian companies or Asian companies want to come to US market. They want ultimately direct MSA, direct customers, basically enterprise customers. So smaller company, which could be a 10 to 50 million revenue company or 100 million revenue company who has an existing customer base in US, that is where there is a sweet spot where they would like to build the competency along with the enterprise customer market access. And that's why today we see that 60% of requirement, today we have a $3 billion kind of funnel for M&A, and most of the 60% requirements come from the US as a market because everyone wants to enter into the US market. It is the most important market for US and Europe. 60% market is US, for 20% will be Europe, 80% is US and Europe covers in IT services. You name the company, whether it's a Japanese companies, Indian companies, or a Europe company, they are all 60% revenue come from the US market. So US is very important market. And I would like to ask Jeremy that since you have a working with so much large enterprise customer of several billions of dollar revenue, IT companies who was billions of dollar IT budget companies also you're working enterprise customer. What is the trend of your enterprise customers are thinking, and what is the change you see last 2 years back and now in the enterprise customer thinking?
You know, we see cycles. I've seen cycles as a search firm. Just examples of cycles. I've seen where they wanted to do centralized ICT or decentralized. I've seen companies want to do everything in-house, and then I've seen them cycle back to where now we're going to go with outsourcing model or hybrid models, offshore, onshore. You know, these are cycles, and executives, a new leadership team will come in, a new CEO, a new CFO, a new CIO, and new leadership teams have new vision, and these visions will ebb and flow. It's like a pendulum; they will swing back and forth, and at the same time in the market, not all companies are having one same mission. Some companies are kind of keeping the lights on and running lean and trying to keep their costs down. And then there's other times when a company says, we're going to increase our IT spend, we're going to innovate, we're going to do major digital transformation, and we're going to see technology as a competitive edge. And so when I talk to different companies, I'm trying to get a feel for what type of customer am I working with? Are they increasing their IT spend? Are they doing major transformational projects? How difficult are these projects? Are they IT led or business led? You know, is IT driving this initiative, or do they have an internal sponsor on the business side? Is the leadership team aligned on this major initiative? So those are all the kind of things that I'm trying to find out with an enterprise customer. But man, I thought you were nailing it though on, you know, the US market. There are so many large companies. When I say large, from a revenue standpoint, when you start thinking about companies that are over 10 billion, over 20 billion, that are truly global, that are market leaders globally, well, the US has a lot of them. So there's a lot of money. And so business is about money. Business is about money, right?
Yeah. And also I see that, you know, the equity valuation, when we see that, quality of revenue or US revenue, they get more 20% premium than the any other country revenue. That's a remarkable change, and why everyone is want to build a US asset as a IT services, because of that US revenue has a high premium. Also people like the customer, their customer cycle, payment cycle is shorter, and the scope of work is also well defined in the US customer. So that is also one of the reason that 60% of the market in SAP still US is a market.
US is the big piece of the pie. You think about it like a big piece of pie globally, and you say, okay, how much revenue does each country represent, or continent, than even North America? And so it is a big piece of the pie. And that's why over the years, I've worked with German SAP consulting firms that were new coming into the US market. I think back to when IDS Shearer and Plautner or MHP, which is owned by Porsche, or CNT. And so sometimes European companies will come into the US market. And one way you can come into a new market is just say, okay, we're going to go open up an office over there.
Yeah.
But you're opening up an office with zero momentum. You don't have any customers yet, not US customers. And in the US, a lot of companies may not know your name yet. So there's a huge advantage, I think, to acquire a US consulting firm that already has customers, that already has employees, that already has momentum in the US market. And so we've seen a lot of big firms from India, from Japan, from Germany, from the UK, from Australia. That's their entryway into the US market. They'll acquire a company. So let me ask you this. I think there's a perception that, well, I have to be $100 million for someone to want to buy me, or I have to be 50 million for someone to want to buy me, or, you know what, we're just getting going. We're 5 years in, and, no one would possibly want to buy my firm. So we need to be way bigger than we are now before we'll finally be interesting to a buyer. Is that true? And if not, what do different technology founders truly need to be thinking about? What is the magic number when they might be attracted?
So I'll tell you, I have examples of last year we did a one Salesforce partnership, which is a 10 million revenue company. We got an partner them for again a US based partner. They got an acquired 70% stake in this company, and 30% is still with the founder, and they are going to build together 50 million revenue company next 5 years together. Still founder is running as a whole management. There's no change in the management. Yes, shareholding has changed, but as far as the customer access, so now they have a US and Europe as a customer base, as a access, enterprise customer access. So this company has got around 17 to 18 sales people in US and Europe. So they got the smaller company, which is 10 million revenue company, got an access to 17, 18 sales people. That could be around 20 to 30 million investment. So they get a now customer access also, and these people are very good in pre-sales, product delivery, and P&L. So that becomes a perfect. So when we did a last year deal, it was a 10 million revenue. This year it has got a 14 million revenue, and now they're saying we do 30 million revenue next 18 months down the line. So instead of 5 years, they will be able to do 4 years, 50 million revenue with that. And the founders will be able to get anything between 30 to 40 million equity value. He'll be able to, after that 30% equity, will be able to get that. So that's the kind of equity value. The main important thing is synergy. Actually, it's not about the revenue. 10 million revenue company can tie up with 50 million revenue company. 50 million can revenue company can tie up with 500 million revenue company. 500 million revenue can tie up with the $5 billion company. So it's a chain, and that is a value for everyone, because if you are a sector wise dependent, you have a competence wise capacity, competencies are there. I think it's a room for everyone to grow from here to 10x in next 3 to 5 years. As far as you have a data and AI along with the competency, you also understand cloud, you also understand cybersecurity. I think then you have a story from here to 10x growth, and it's the right time, because independently growing is a very difficult time. Has come for the collaboration, and we see the collaboration with SF. We see the same thing, that we are doing a 5 million in India, we do 50 million in US along with the partnership. So that's the power of collaboration and partnership. Moment you do a partner with right partner, 10x is very easy.
I think you're so right on that, SP. And the reason I wanted to ask that question, I do think that, again, sometimes people think they have an incorrect assumption. They think, well, I have to be at this number to finally sell. And it's really not true. We have found, I know, so I now have an alliance partnership with TransVenture, and we're talking actively, you and I, as you know, about the types of buyers that they represent sometimes, because they do represent buyers and sellers, SP. And we may have folks on this call that are technology founders that want to do acquiring. TransVenture does both. They work with buyers sometimes, and then they also work with sellers. They have that capability. They have the capability to work with founders that literally just want to sell because they're going to retire. But there's so many more ways to do mergers and acquisitions. Sometimes people want to stay on and continue to lead a company. That's what happened with me. I was acquired by a parent company, but I was 48 years old. I wasn't ready to retire. So to your point, SP, my focus was, is the synergy there with the parent company that might buy us? Do I want to work with this group of people? And can they help me achieve something faster or something different than I might be able to achieve on my own? Can they help us grow to a certain number faster, better? Can they help us with new capabilities that I didn't have on my own? And so for me, the answer was yes, yes, yes. And that's when it finally made sense. But I talked to a lot of buyers before I decided on which one. It's kind of like dating, you know, just because you talk to one potential buyer, that one might not be right. You know, you have to get to know the different buyers. Are we a good culture fit? What's their vision for us? Does that align with my vision? Now, if you're just selling it outright and walking away, that might not matter as much. But if you're staying on and you're going to work closely with them to continue to build something, well, then it matters a lot, right? But I think the point is, you do not have to be $100 million firm. We are seeing some of the buyers that we work with, they do want to buy a company that's in the 3 to 5 million range, or in the 5 to 10 million range, or some of them want a mid-sized company in the 20 million range, and some of them do want a large buy. Sometimes they do want that $100 million type of company. And
So
so
I see also another, actually, Jeremy, another trend here. There's a two types of buyer. One is a private equity led companies, other is a founder led company. So this is also important, that where you want to associate with. The private equity funding companies will work in different manner. They want to acquire, consolidate, and exit or IPO. But the founder led company will work like, more like a partner. He will see that it's a true partner. You keep 49%. I'm fine with that. You grow, we grow together, and next 20 years you can work together. So it's also like, there's a 50-50 chance that there are 50% company who are a founder led companies, 50% is a private equity led companies, and both the styles are different. So it's also that what you rightly said is, the synergy is more important. What is your vision and what the other company's vision, that is ultimately vision, synergy, and then how you work together, and what is your mission vision for next 5 years. That will be important part in doing the right partnership.
I really appreciate you bringing up that there are different types of buyers, and that can make a big difference in the way that a deal comes together. And there are different types of acquisitions. Mine was what we would oftentimes refer to as a strategic acquisition. And, so TransVenture has the ability to work with technology founders and talk about the different scenarios, get to know what kind of path would work best for each person, each type of technology founder. Some companies that you might work with have more than one founder. They could have had a 2 or 3 people that co-own the business, and so things can complicate these deals. But M&A deals are complicated. They are, but they happen all the time. They may take 6 to 9 months to almost a year to complete, but these are complicated, and you want a partner. Almost every M&A deal of what we're talking about, of these big technology firms, M&A brokers are involved, strategic partners are involved, and it's complicated. So you want an expert, whoever it is that you choose, you want some experts working with you on these deals, and they can help you find more buyers. That gives you more people to talk to get the best deal you can get. Let me ask you, I think there's different variables, and maybe we'll wrap up on this, because we're going to do more than one podcast. I want everyone to know we're going to actually start to interview technology founders that have already been through the M&A process and talk about lessons learned and hear from different perspectives. And we may come back and have a few more with just SP and I, because there's so much to unpack in the topics that we're discussing today. But let's finish with this. I think there's a lot of variables that can impact how you value a company in the U.S. market, and you guys are the experts on this. So I'm going to ask you, I think you could have a certain number of employees. So how big are we from an employee's perspective? Customers. Who are our customers? Are our customers attractive to a buyer? Are they buying us for our customers? Are they buying us for our employees? But then there's also our top line revenue, and then there's EBITDA. My experience personally was that companies that have recurring revenues, and they like to look at 2 to 3 years of revenue, not 5, not 10, but it's usually a 3-year. They want to know 3 years of revenue, and they want to look at your EBITDA. And then there's multipliers. different companies can get different multipliers. Like some companies can get a 10 or 12 multiplier, and others can get a 6 to 8. So of the variables I'm talking about, SP, number of employees, types of customers, market positioning, or EBITDA or top line revenue, what is it that you find to be attractive to companies, and how do they figure out a valuation of a company, and which ones are selling for the higher multipliers? What variables drive those kinds of things?
Yeah, so I think, Jeremy, you have a very good question to ask. Actually, sometimes there are two things which is important. The recurring revenue, what you say, is more important because the people who are saying that how much is recurring revenue, more and more recurring revenue, your EBITDA multiple or revenue multiple will grow. Second thing is also the competency what you are having in that particular, whether it's SAP, what kind of competencies you have in SAP itself, that will also drive. So if you have a AI related competency, if you have a Databricks also competency along with SAP, you'll have a much more higher than multiple than the normal only SAP competence of staff augmentation will be a 6 times EBITDA. If you have a data and AI along with the SAP, you have a 12 to 15 times EBITDA. Also, we have seen the cases there. So this is a competency. Second is also the second line team, that the top 10 people of your company, how good they you will be able to retain with them, and how you are long you are able to work with them. That's also a very qualitative, investors and the buyers on the strategic partners look for that very importantly, that the core team is whether they are going to remain with us or not. That's the important point. And third is the enterprise customer, that quality of enterprise, the logos what you have, and how many years that those logos are there with you is also important. So this is a mixture of all three, and time to time it can changes. The some buyers will have a different priorities, but ultimately these are the three four things which is very important for buyer. And sometimes what we have seen, Jeremy, is that unless we do 2 or 3 meetings with the buyer and seller, the seller comes to us and they say, okay, I want this. But once they do 2 or 3 meetings with the different buyers, then they require what kind of right partner they're looking for. Sometime in initial phase of when they come in month one, they are not ready with the data, they are not ready with the deck, and they're not ready which is right. But once they do 2 3 meetings in 2 3 months time, then they are very clear, oh, this is the partner which I'll be looking for it. And then the actual journey starts. So it's a actually 9 months to 18 months journey with every founder. And we are not looking for the founders only for 9 months to 18 month journey. We want them to they do a successful partnership 3 to 5 years here with a large partner, create equity value, and we create a fund end of the 5 year, that along with the founders who got exit with their money, and we remain that next 10 years or lifetime partnership with them. That's the our actually goal and the vision, that we want to work with the founder is a lifetime partnership, not about the transaction or 3 year or 5 year. We are ultimately next 10 to 15 years journey. Can we work with the founder? So we work with the best benefit of the founder, that what is good for the founder. Ultimately, we take the decision based on that, not that what is our interest in the deal. Our idea is basically that can we become a lifetime partner with our founders whom we are working with, whether it's a 5 year journey or 10 year or 15 year 20 year. Because many of the founders we did the deals, and then after their exit they came to us and they said, I have a 50 million equity with us, and why don't we create I want to set up a family office with them. They've set up the family office with them. We help them to set up the family office. We help them to get a right portfolio company for them, and also manage the portfolio for them. So ultimately that becomes that whatever equity value they create out of this, that becomes a 10x in next 10 year with them. And that wealth creation can happen for the next generation. So this is what the journey what we do with the founders.
Yeah, I love that. And, look, guys, I hope any technology founders that are listening to this podcast today, we're going to do more of these episodes where we talk about lessons learned, mistakes that people have made in M&A, things they wish they had done that they didn't, questions they wish they had asked that they didn't. We'll talk about hugely successful M&A stories. There are examples when one didn't go right, and hey, I could have learned from that. And so we're going to talk to some founders in future podcasts that have sold 2 or 3 or more companies in their lifetime. And so they learn lessons and they do better. We're also going to talk about, for the founder that's not ready to sell right now, how do you think ahead to build your company? How do we build our company now so it's more attractive later? Even if you're not thinking of exiting now, well, at some point you are. When you can think about those things in advance, you can now start to structure your company in a way that you can maximize the future value of your company. So this is going to be a podcast you're going to want to continue to tune into and hear more from SP and I when we talk, and then also when we interview other technology founders. It's going to be a great journey. We're going to continue to hopefully have at least one podcast per month where we're talking to tech founders. A lot of them will be in the SAP system, but some could be ServiceNow, Snowflake, Databricks, AI. TransVenture is playing across those hot pockets in the IT ecosystem. So real quick, as we get ready to, wrap up here, I just kind of, wanted to ask you, TransVenture, can you, well, maybe I'll just share screen real quick here, and I will show everyone what your website looks like, just in case any of our listeners may want to check out TransVenture. So TransVenture, it has the hyphen right there, and this is the logo and the website for TransVenture. Trans-venture.in. And, you can kind of see, more about what SP and his team does to help technology firms with their growth. Sometimes they help them with capital and different things along those lines. And everything from M&A to any kind of business consulting, or, even just how we want to grow our company and how could we infuse capital, or if you're interested about private equity and how a PE firm could maybe get involved to help your company grow. TransVenture plays in that space. And, again, we're very open even just to having conversations with folks. If you just want to ask questions, it doesn't hurt to reach out to a market expert and to have that conversation. So as we post our podcast, below in the comments, you'll see the websites for ASAP Talent and TransVenture. And you'll see also SP will be tagged in there if you want to connect with him on LinkedIn or ask any private questions. You can do that for both of us. Okay. Thank you guys so much for joining our call today. And be on the lookout for those future calls as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you very much.